Welcome along to Donington Park, everybody. It's the opening round of the 2026 Focus Cup Championship. A huge grid of 27 cars, both in Class 1, the petrol engine cars, and Class 2 for the older diesel engine cars, took part in qualifying. This is the first of two races that we've got for you today before the cars then head to Snetterton in Norfolk, Alton Park, Anglesey Croft and Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. All form the calendar for what is a 19-race busy season in 2026 for the Focus Cup. Now, the way the grid is formed, we'll see the Class 1 cars, the petrol engine cars, line up on the front 5 rows of the grid. Then there'll be a couple of rows gap before we see the Class 2 cars go. Class 1 cars, 365 pounds-feet of torque, about 300 brake horsepower. The Class 2 cars, which are the diesel cars, are about 180 brake horsepower. The way they line up, Simon Walton is going to start on row number 2. So it's Ian Mitchell and John Baker on row number 1. Simon Walton, the man behind the championship, starts on row number 2 with, for company, Mark McCann. We head on to the next row of the grid, which is row number 3, and that's where we see the car of Rick Wynn alongside Simon Langford. And it's Ali Topley, who was the Class 2 champion last year, steps up to Class 1. He has got Rich Hall for company on row number 4. And the final row for the Class 1s, at least, is going to see Ian Graham line up alongside Shields Bergstrom all the way from Milwaukee in America to race with us this weekend. Rows 1 of the grid for the Class 2s will see number 17, Lewis Clark, line up alongside what will be Kevin Taylor-Beebe. And then as we head on to row number 7 overall, on the inside of the 7th row, it's Macaulay Underwood and Andrew Mitchell. Ian Howard has got Charlie Hall for company on row number 8. Row number 9, we'll see Abby Walton line up alongside Nev Voss. Then it's going to be Jake Critchley and Matt Croft before we then see Adam Winter lining up alongside the car of Andrew Freeman. Shui Huang lines up alongside Mike Eng, ahead of Pinky Lazaridо and Sarah Hall. And then at the tail end of the field will be Cameron FM, will line up at the tail end of the field. So that's the 27 cars that we see out there for their opening race. A 15-minute race now. We'll have race 2 coming up for you around about 5:30 this afternoon if we run to timetable. This race itself already slightly delayed because of some other problems in qualifying sessions preceding our first race of the season for the Focus Cup Championship. We're on the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit as well, so it's just under 2.5 miles. It's 2.4873 miles to be absolutely precise, and we've already got the final rows of the grid just coming into position very, very shortly. Andrew Freeman just coming up onto his grid slot. Then we've got Shui Huang, who is at the wheel of that car, the black and the red and the white car. It's chilly out there. It might be sunshiny and there's some blue skies, but there's quite a strong breeze out there, and it does feel rather still as though spring hasn't fully hit us as yet. It is chilly, but the cars have had the time to warm up their controlled tyres that they all run, and we're about to get the first race of the season underway with, by the look of things, on pole position, looking to see whether he might be able to burst away into the lead of the race. We'll find out what happens because the red lights are coming on the gantry any second now, and then we'll be away and Focus Cup racing for the first time this year. Red lights are on the gantry, the lights go out, and it looks like it's a good start from pole position. Absolutely nailed the start, a rocket of a start for Mark McCann heading up towards the first corner, Redgate corner, for the first time. Who's going to slot through into second position? It's John Baker that slots himself through into second position. The early lead in Class 2 as there's contact a little bit further back, and I'm afraid Lewis Clark gets turned around and gets hit very hard into the side. 1, 2, 3 cars all involved, other cars having to take to the gravel trap, but I'm afraid with Lewis Clark stranded in the middle of the circuit and heavy rear end damage to his car from when he got, I'm not sure whether he spun around on cold rears or whether there was contact which pitched him into the spin, but that is a 3 times Focus Cup champion that is out on the spot, and Charlie Hall, I'm afraid, is the other car that is stricken. So 2 cars in the middle of the circuit, and there's further problems down at the old hairpin, I'm afraid, as well. We have lost the number 99 car of Rich Hall, who has gone off onto the grass and may well be able to recover. Race continues in the meantime. John Baker manages to nip through up at Coppice Corner and pick up the lead of the race from Mark McCann in second position. Simon Walton's there in 4th at the moment, but not unsurprisingly, yellow flags are out around the circuit. Safety car is coming out, and that is going to bring the race to a controlled status. So out come the SC boards and the flashing LED lights. And we've got at least 2 cars to clear up at Redgate Corner, with possibly a further car of Rich Hall if he was able to get going down at the old hairpin, I'm afraid. So not been the ideal start to the 2026 Focus Cup Championship. And for poor old Lewis Clark, who was the Class 1 champion, he will be absolutely gutted that he's involved in an incident straight away. It looks as though limping back round with damage to his car is Nev Vos. I think he was another one that was involved. But it's good to see, albeit maybe a little bit winded with that one, but Lewis Clark is out of the car. Charlie Hall is out of their car, and that's the most important thing. These very strongly built Focus Cup cars have protected the drivers. They are out of harm's way now, out of their cars, and they'll be making their way back in towards the paddock area, the medical centre, and of course for the team that centrally prepares all of these cars, there's lots of work to do to see those cars back out later on, albeit in Focus Cup there are spare cars available, so it may well be that is spare cars that are having to be utilised possibly for Charlie Hall and for Lewis Clark. And I'm afraid the safety car has now turned into a red flag, so it was deemed that with those two cars stricken where they were in the debris around the circuit, we are, I'm afraid, now going to have a red flag. So that has brought the race to a halt after what were just 2 minutes and 2 seconds since the lights went out. So all of the cars lined up around Goddard's corner, and we'll wait for the instructions as to when they're able to retake their grid positions. Our fantastic Donington Park marshals and rescue crews and recovery crews will be going to work to do all of the requisite amount of sweeping up that needs doing, picking up all of the bits of debris from up there at Redgate Corner. So let's just have a quick look at the replay of the start. I think we're able to see what happened. So Mark McCann gets a great start, but it's down towards Class 2 where you need to be looking. Lewis Clark looked as though he got a good start at the wheel of the power flexed car and was just ahead on the initial stage, but it was Macaulay Underwood that managed to sneak through and ahead of him as they went in towards Redgate Corner. And was there any contact? Can't see any. I think Lewis Clark just lost the car of his own accord. There's this concertina effect, and further cars in the background just can't react in time, I'm afraid. So that was why Nev Vos got involved and pitched into the spin. Other cars had to brake drivers right and brake drivers left, but the main impact was Charlie Hall into the back of Lewis Clark's car. And as we say, that is a champion in Focus Cup. He was a Class 1 champion last year, Lewis Clark. He'd already been a previous champion in Class 2, both in 2023 and in 2024. So he's 3 times a Focus Cup champion, and is the only driver to have secured it in both classes, because the Class 1 class was introduced last year for the petrol engine cars. Steps back to Class 2 and straight away has rotten luck at the very beginning of the season. And that is going to be a Focus that will need a fair chunk of attention to sort out the damage on what will be the right rear quarter and the rear end of his car, and it will be the front left corner of the number 11 car, which is the one we can't quite see out of Charlie Hall. So I think the telehandler is going to try and drag Lewis Clark's car out of harm's way. He'll have to go to the medical centre for what is just a requisite mandatory checkup. When there's an impact accident, all of the drivers just have to go to the medical centre just to be checked over, checked that they're okay, and then released from there with all the requisite paperwork as well that needs doing. And hopefully that won't prevent Lewis Clark or Charlie Hall or even Nev Vos, who had problems as well. And of course Rich Hall in the Class 1 car had problems down at the old hairpin. Hopefully they'll all, if not able to restart this race, they'll be able to get back out for the second race later on today. So you can see the front end of that number 11 car is sort of down on the left hand side, so where the impact was made it has caused some significant damage, albeit we can't see it, but the angle of that front bumper, either the bumper is loose or there's significant damage, maybe a broken wheel or something that's just pitching that car down into the front left hand corner. But as I say, the most important thing is that all of the drivers out of their cars and absolutely fine. Everybody else just queuing up there around the Melbourne hairpin, waiting for the marshals to instruct them to rejoin the grid, albeit one of them, which I think is Nev Vos, has now been told by the marshals that he probably needs to drive back down into the pit lane because of the damage to what looked like the right rear corner of his car. And also, unfortunately, whatever happened down at the old hairpin, looks as though tyre wall has been damaged, so Rich Hall's car wasn't just onto the grass. I did wonder, was there a bit of damage to the front? And looking at the way the telehandler and the circuit staff are now readjusting the tyres and replacing the belting in front of those tyres, it looks as though Rich Hall has also made contact with the barriers down there, which again didn't see the initial impact of that, and whether he did that on his own or whether there was any other assistance that pushed him into that position. So it is a chilly day though, and I think that was really what caught out Lewis Clark, just those cold rear tyres. You can see when he turned in towards Redgate Corner that the back end of the car just wasn't compliant with his input. The tail end of the car just caused it to oversteer on cold rear tyres. Thankfully his car is being towed away with all 4 corners turning, albeit damage to it. And there we can now see the damage to the front left-hand corner of Charlie Hall's car. Marshall's just inspecting the damage, trying to understand, will the wheel turn? And if it will turn, they'll be able to drag it out of harm's way. If not, then I'm afraid that, again, that car will need picking up before it is able to get going again. So that is certainly, I would have thought, possibly 4 cars that won't make the restart, 2 of which will be Class 2 for the diesel engined 2-litre TDCi engine Fords. Very torquey engine, 310 pounds-feet of torque in those cars. So they're the earlier mark of Focus. That's a 3-door car, the Class 2, so they're a 6-speed manual, and that's the shape of Focus that were produced between 2007 and 2010. And the Class 1 cars are the 5-door cars, the ST 250s, 300 brake horsepower, 365 pounds-feet of torque, and they're the newer cars. They were the Focus cars that were built between 2015 2018, and both of them run a 6-speed manual gearbox. So one more car to clear out of harm's way up at Redgate. Still further work going on down at the old hairpin, and we shall wait and see as to whether there is going to be a reduction in the time of this race. I believe there might be. I believe it might be down to a 10-minute race, which would be hugely unfortunate, because it's fair to say last year Focus Cup didn't have as much track time at Donington Park as they would have wished. They were the opening race of the season last year, albeit we're on the Grand Prix circuit this weekend. The opening race of 2025 was on the national circuit. We got the first race in, but we weren't able to conclude the second race. That was ultimately then moved, and an extra race was added in at Snetterton in the middle part of the year. So they got the Donington Park race 2 in, but at Snetterton. And then the final race of the season at Donington Park, which was on the Grand Prix circuit, also didn't happen, unfortunately. The final race of the championship we were not able to get through last year because of time pressures and daylight and further delays from supporting races. So it was a tough year last year at Donington Park for the Focus Cup, and a tough start to their season here, for which there's only one visit this year. As we say, they start here at Donington Park with 2 races. They go to Snetterton, and I think Snetterton is a double-header weekend, so I think they've got 2 races Saturday, 2 races Sunday at Snetterton. Alton Park is the middle part of June, part of the Supercar Pageant meeting, one would imagine, up there. That's just a single-day meeting, so they squeeze in 2 races there. Then they go to Anglesey. Hopefully the weather will be nice in the middle part of July, where again they will have 4 races there, 2 on the Saturday, 2 on the Sunday. Then up to Croft in North Yorkshire, which will be in August, towards the tail end of August, 22nd and 23rd of August, for a further 4 races there. And they'll conclude their season down at Brands Hatch, which I think is a treble header this year, down at Brands Hatch, and that'll be on the 19th and the 20th of September, but not on the Indy circuit. It will be the full Grand Prix circuit down there, so something that the drivers will really be looking forward to. So it looks as though the damage to Charles Hall's car is slightly more than Lewis Clark's, because Lewis Clark's was able to be moved out of harm's way with a tow rope, whereas the front end damage to Charles Hall, where he made contact with the rotating Lewis Clark, the unsighted Charlie Hall just couldn't avoid hitting the stricken car, so that is needing to be towed out of harm's way with front end suspended lift to it. It's the same also down at the old hairpin, I'm afraid, for Rich Hall, whose Swan Flight supported car. You can see frontal damage to his car, and that is also meaning that that is being dropped onto the flatbed recovery unit. So with the 3 cars to clear up and the delays, that's why now it has been confirmed that the race will be rerun, but over just 10 minutes, I'm afraid, in this one. Marshall's working as quickly as they can, the recovery crew's working as quickly as they can, the circuit officials making sure that the circuit furniture is all back where it needs to be again, all the tyres are placed correctly, the belting is re-secured in front of the tyres, and then once we get the recovery units back off the circuit and the telehandler back to where it needs to be, then we can start with what will be another formation lap, and then we'll get this reduced distance underway. So it's still going to be probably 5 minutes before we can get the rolling lap underway, unfortunately. So Lewis Clark, who was a race winner here at the opening round last year when he was in Class 1, he won the first race of the season at Donington Park. He won't take any further part in the race. Mark McCann, who was the runner-up in Class 2 last year and has moved up to Class 1. He was leading the race overall for the first half a lap before then we saw that change for the lead just before the safety car came out, John Baker. But we'll wait and see the way the grid lines up. It should, in theory, I would have thought, line up back in original grid order. So John Baker has got a bit more work to do because he was leading when the red flags or the safety car came out, and he'll probably end up starting back in the fourth row of the grid, but that will all be confirmed. Probably not with a graphic, but we should be able to work out the way the cars line up, whether it's in original grid order. If we see the blue number 10 car of John Baker towards the front of the grid, it's an amended grid based on where they were running when the safety car came out. If we see John Baker in the blue and light blue car, the number 10 car on the fourth row of the grid, we know it's going to be as per the original grid positions. So the marshals pretty much done, the recovery crews on their way, the telehandler just making sure it goes back to its little gap in the barriers, which will be around near Starkey's Bridge. It will head back off the track, but it will park up probably down at the old hairpin. Just on the entry to the old hairpin is where that telehandler is usually placed. The marshals have done any sweeping up they need to do. So the track down at the old hairpin now looks clear. I think it's pretty much clear other than any small bits of final sweeping up that are being done at Redgate Corner. So I think the cars are now being ushered forward to retake up their grid positions in this one. And then hopefully once they're in position we can very quickly get the green flag lap underway. You can see the blue sky we've got at Donington Park. You can see the fantastic preparation of the circuit with the grass all neatly cut in the distance up there towards McLean's Corner. As ever, the circuit looking superb under the ownership of, or operation nowadays, not ownership but operation of MSV. Good crowd watching this weekend, albeit it is chilly out there, as we say, with cool temperature today despite the sunshine. It's the breeze more than anything. It's over 30 kilometers per hour, the breeze, so you can see the trees blowing around opposite our commentary position, and when you're in the sunshine it's sort of bearable. When the cloud cover comes over it really does feel quite chilly out there, and that will be affecting not just the spectators but also clearly affecting the amount of heat that drivers were able to get into their tyres. And you can see the flags busy blowing away. It's a side wind down the Wheatcroft Straight, which means that it's also going to be a side wind when the cars come out of Coppice Corner, which is where the Mick Avery recovery truck is going now to bring back the stricken car of Rich Hall. So that's one Class 1 car that won't take the restart. We certainly know of at least two Class 2 cars, possibly with Nev Vos as a third, depending on whether they can get that damage to his right rear, I should say, sorted. And also, there's another car, that's Ian Graham that we've lost as well. I didn't spot Ian Graham's car, so he's come back on the back of a recovery unit. So that's another Class 2 car. So I do wonder if maybe Rich Hall and Ian Graham had a coming together down at the old hairpin, and that's what's caused his retirement, because they were pretty much together on the Class 1 grid. So didn't see Rich Hall's off and what caused it, but the two cars were not far from each other when they lined up on the original grid. Right, okay, so the grid does see John Baker on the front row of the grid, so it's not going to be back to the original grid order. It will be the point that where they were running before the safety car came out, and then subsequently the red flags. So we're about to get another rolling lap underway for the Focus Cup. They'll have to work hard to try and make sure that they can get as much heat into their control tyres as possible, for which you are limited for the amount of tyres for a weekend. The cars are all supplied centrally by Simon Walton's Focus Cup team, all fitted with 4 good tyres for the weekend. Spare tyres can be used in the case of tyre damage and punctures, but you can't just keep throwing tyres at the car. It's a very affordable way to go racing. Racing isn't cheap generally, but what you do for the weekend is hire the car in reality. You can take out, insurance is the wrong word, but you can take out a damage assistance package, for want of a better term, which covers you should you get involved in an incident. There's a cost to pay for that, but it almost allows you to pay whatever the excess is and any damage on top. But all of the cars are all prepared centrally. You have your own individual mechanics. Some of the drivers also have driver coaches to assist them over the weekend. But it's a great way of not owning a race car, just hiring it for the weekend or the full season and going racing. It's a very affordable way of going club racing in the UK. And the introduction of the new Class 1 cars last year, the 5-door ST250s is going from strength to strength. We saw, half a dozen cars out or so last year. We're up to 10 this year. I know car number 11 and I think car number 12 are either in build or have been sourced. So they're continually looking to add to the numbers in Class 1. And with 27 cars on the grid this weekend, then it really is going from strength to strength, the Focus Cup. I think it hits the price point for a lot of drivers, and the good thing is, you know, if your price point is a Class 2 car, go and race Class 2. If you've got a bit more budget available, then Class 1 opens up some possibilities for you. And the package includes basic hospitality, includes a Friday test as well, so you get your testing thrown in for the fee for the weekend as well. And there's a good friendly atmosphere amongst the drivers as well. So the car's on another formation lap. Looking as though there are a few cars missing off the back of the grid maybe as well. But as we say, they're not back in original grid order, so any shuffling towards the rear is probably why we see, I think that's Pinky Lazaredo at the back, driver who joins us over from France for this weekend. So we've got one driver from France, we've got one driver, Shields Bergstrom, from America. I think he's Milwaukee based, is Shields Bergstrom. And then we've got the likes of Shui Wang joining the championship for this weekend, the number 76 car that you can just see there on your screens, and Mike Ng, as well as his surname is pronounced, joins in the Amiga Busways UK backed car for this weekend. So formation lap has been concluded. Let's have another go at getting the 2026 Focus Cup Championship underway. Mike McCann and John Baker sitting there on pole position. Simon Walton, the man behind the championship, is on the second row of the grid on the inside. And as the lights will come on any second now, let's just have a quick look and see when they flash out. Sorry, it's Ian Mitchell that's on pole position, I should say. And Ian Mitchell will be leading the pack. An amended grid was issued, so yeah, it's Ian Mitchell that's on pole position. John Baker alongside, lights go out, away they go. Looks as though Ian Mitchell gets a good start. John Baker is trying to match him and also trying to cover off what Simon Walton might be doing over to driver's right. And it does look as though John Baker is going to be in second, Simon Walton in third place. Nose to tail for who's fourth. It's Mark McCann who's there in fourth place, and Rick Wynn, I think, completes the top five. We'll pick up on the early Class 2 leader as they start to shuffle their way downhill. I think it might be Kevin Taylor-Beebe that leads Class 2 in the early stages. They all thunder their way, thankfully safely this time through Redgate Corner, down towards the old hairpin, which also caught a few out last time through. And it does look as though, yes, it is Kevin Taylor-Beebe that leads Class 2, but the light green car is Macaulay Underwood, which is directly behind him. The Class 1s head up towards McLean's Corner, who in 10 minutes might get into the tail end of some of the Class 2, so there might be a bit of backmarker lappery that needs contending with, but we're on the Grand Prix circuit, so it's slightly longer. The race is reduced by 5 minutes as well, so whether the Class 2s fully catch the whether Class 1s fully catch the Class 2s, we shall have to wait and see. It is Ian Mitchell that leads the way. Ian was runner-up in Class 1 last year. He's been a front-runner in Class 2 in the past and has finished in the top 3 in the championship. He leads the race overall. The Class 1s heading in towards the Fogarty S's for the first time, and it's Macaulay Underwood who has taken up the early lead now, away from Kevin Taylor-Beebe, to lead Class 2 at this stage for the TDCI diesel engine cars. Down in towards the Melbourne hairpin go the Class 1s. Ali Topley looking to carve his way through the order, proudly carrying the number 1, as he was the Class 2 champion last year. So he steps up to Class 1 for this season, and he is looking to try and make progress. He's ahead of Rick Wynn and is looking to see whether he might just be able to edge away and close in onto the coattails of the car that lies ahead of him, which will be Mark McCann, who's there in what will be 4th place at the moment. He's closing on Mark McCann as they head up towards Redgate. Are we going to have the change for 4th place? Ali Topley jinks out from behind. He's got the inside line at Redgate, and Ali Topley goes through. So that's 4th place gain now for Ali Topley. Next car that he's going to want to try and set about lies just up the road from him, which I think is Simon Walton. So down through the Craner curves they will thread their way. Powermax car of Ali Topley looking to close in on the man who runs the championship, running there in 3rd place. We've seen Simon Racing Focus Cup for a good number of years, albeit largely he was in development cars for the last few years, so wasn't really racing, he was telling me yesterday. You know, if there was a squabble for position, he'd move out of the way because he was developing the Class 1 cars a couple of years ago, and last year didn't want to get involved in the championship. This year he said, I'm racing this year, I am absolutely going to drive my socks off. Well, he's going well at the moment, he's in 3rd place. He's getting dropped a little bit by the lead 2 though at this stage, who are just breaking away. Ian Mitchell leading the way. John Baker trying to come at him this time as they head out of Coppice and down the exhibition straight. But Ian Mitchell has the inside line when they get towards the Fogarty S's. Can John Baker take the lead? No, you can see the nose of his car just dipped that little bit earlier than Ian Mitchell, so he decided it wasn't worth it through there at the Fogarty S's. He's going to have another little nibble though as they go up towards the Melbourne hairpin. Ian Mitchell covers that off and protects the right-hand side of the circuit. The all-important inside line for the Melbourne hairpin. So John Baker's going to have to try and concentrate on the exit of the corner, see what he can do, but all of a sudden from the front 2 having broken away, they squabble for a split second, and Simon Walton is now back with them again almost. He's not close enough at Goddard's, but he's not that far away. 6.5 minutes just under of the race to go. Lap number 2 about to be completed. Over the start-finish line they'll go. It is going to be Ian Mitchell that leads the way. Right behind him is John Baker, Simon Walton, followed by then Mark McCann. Then we get a little gap thereafter, which is where we then see the car that's next up, which is Richard Wynne. Richard Wynne has got behind him Simon Langford, who completes the top 6 at this stage. Class 2 cars will be just coming up towards Redgate Corner at this stage, and it looks as though we've had a further change up to 2nd now. We have gained Andrew Mitchell, who's up into 2nd place, and down into 3rd, having led the class earlier on, is Kevin Taylor-Beebe, but he's under pressure again here as Ian Howard is looking to try and sneak his way up the inside. Can't quite get through there, so Kevin Taylor-Beebe, just by the skin of his teeth, hangs on to 3rd in Class 2 at the moment. But it's got close company from Ian Howard, who was trying to thread the needle there but couldn't quite work his way through. Quite a gap back though to the next car that's there in Class 2, which will be down in 13th overall. That'll be the number 78 car of Andrew Freeman, who's made good progress through the grid actually. Qualified on the original grid that was issued to start down on the 14th row of the grid, so he has made good progress. Race leaders just coming up towards the Fogarty S's. Looks as though Simon Walton has just fallen a shade more away in 3rd, not huge amounts, but it does look as though Ian Mitchell and John Baker just have enough so that they can concentrate their efforts on squabbling with each other rather than worrying about Simon Walton, who's behind at this stage, as they now head down in towards the braking area for the Melbourne hairpin. Looks as though the progress Ali Topley has made on the previous lap has been undone because Richard Wynne is back ahead of him again, so they've had a bit of a shuffle of the order, and Ali Topley, who was going well, has lost 2 places on the previous lap. Richard Wynne went through, and also Simon Langford 474 has gone through as well. So Ali Topley's 4th place was sort of short-lived really. Not quite sure what dropped him down through the order. Either a problem with the car, maybe a missed gear, maybe just didn't quite hit an apex right, but he seems to have dropped away a shade. For 3rd place in Class 2, good effort there by Ian Howard, who snuck through briefly and up to 3rd, but Kevin Taylor-Beebe returns the favour and puts his car back up into 3rd place, and there's problems there, I'm afraid, for Ian Howard. All of a sudden he seemed to slow coming out of the Melbourne hairpin, so there's that an issue for him that might cost him a bit of time. It seems to be back to full race pace again, so probably just a missed gear or something like that in his car. Front 2 though in Class 2 now really getting away. Macaulay Underwood under big pressure from Andrew Mitchell, so they work their way onto the top of the Craner curve, so Hollywood, and then down through the Craner curves, the sweeps of the Craner curves, where you really don't get the correct impression on the television of the gradient change there, down in towards the old hairpin. Very quick corner, the old hairpin, probably these cars taken in 3rd gear. Let the torque of the diesel engine pull you out. For the lead of the race overall and the lead of Class 1, still as they were, Ian Mitchell still doing a very good job at the moment of holding off the man who finished 3rd in Class 1 last year. John Baker's a former runner-up in Class 2. Back in 2024 he was the runner-up in Class 2. The 2 of them are very much at it. They were evenly matched in Class 1 last year. Looks as though they're evenly matched in Class 1 this year as well, up towards the conclusion of what will be lap number 4 this time through. Ian Mitchell set the fastest lap of the race last time with a 1:48.648. That is much, much quicker than they were going on what was a damp qualifying session for them, because pole position time was 2 minutes 7, 2 minutes 8, something like that this morning. So much, much quicker. Now that we've got a dry Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, the lead 2 pulling away from Simon Walton, who still remains in 3rd at the moment. Mark McCann in 4th, Simon Langford in 5th, and looks as though Shields Bergstrom's going well as well. He's there as our driver who's come over from Milwaukee in the US for this weekend. For the lead of Class 2, Macaulay Underwood for the first time has a bit more breathing space now, actually, so they're fighting over 9th and 10th overall, these 2 cars, but more importantly is the lead of Class 2 for the 2-litre TDCi diesel engine machines. Over the start-finish line goes Macaulay, and how much time left on the clock? There'll be one more lap after this one, because when Ian Mitchell came through to start the lap, there was more than a lap time left, so he's on his penultimate lap at the moment. Front 2 have pulled away quite significantly in the lead of Class 2 from Kevin Taylor Beebe. And it's Ian Howard who's now starting to get reeled in a bit by Andrew Freeman in the ABS back car with its white and its Union Jack livery. So Ian Howard, who was looking for 3rd and was briefly in 3rd, is down to 4th, a long way away from 3rd, and might drop to 5th the way things are. Abby Walton, I think, completes the top 6 in Class 2 in the light green and pink machine. She's the daughter of the man who's currently 3rd in the race overall, the man behind the championship, Simon Walton. So just over 60 seconds to go. Lap number 5 at the moment. Ian Mitchell has never really been able to shake away John Baker, but John Baker has never really also been close enough to attack for the lead of the race. 30 points for a race win. It's 26 if you're second, it's 23 if you're 3rd. It's actually same amounts of points for qualifying as well, so if you qualify on pole in your class you pick up 30. If you're second it's 26, if you're 3rd it's 23, and so on. It keeps diminishing from there. So up towards Redgate Corner to start the final lap. Simon Walton still in 3rd, but Mark McCann not that far away. Looking to see if there's any small mistake from Simon Walton, he might be able to get right up onto terms with him. Simon's got plenty of racing experience, right the way back to when he used to race in the Mini Challenge in the UK. So he set up the Focus Championship some years ago now. First year of Focus Cup racing in the UK was 2019, I think. So for the lead of Class 2, all of a sudden Andrew Mitchell is back right up onto terms with Macaulay Underwood. So they are about to head on to their last lap of the race, and Macaulay Underwood is feeling the pinch here, as looking to try and squeeze his way through comes Andrew Mitchell. He had a good run coming out of Goddard's. He's drawn himself alongside the race leader, and he's got the all-important inside line when they head up towards Redgate Corner, so Andrew Mitchell might go through to pick up the Class 2 lead here. I'm sure Macaulay Underwood will try his very best to try and hang on to it, but I'm afraid up the inside goes Andrew Mitchell, who has his nose ahead heading onto Hollywood, and Macaulay will try and fight it out down through the Craner curves. Outside line for part 1, given the inside line for part 2, but no, already through and past is Andrew Mitchell, who picks up the lead in Class 2 as we start what for them is the final lap of the race. Round through the old hairpin they will go. They're fighting for the lead of Class 2. The lead of Class 1 will probably be heading down in towards the Fogarty S's, I would have thought, at the moment. And by the look of things, no, the lead of Class 1 is already heading up towards the conclusion of the lap on Goddard's, where the checkered flag will greet on the exit of the corner Ian Mitchell, who is on course to claim the first win in 2026 in the Focus Cup. Ian Mitchell claims the win. Second place is John Baker. Simon Walton will hang on for 3rd. Mark McCann will come through in 4th position. Simon Langford will be 5th. And 6th, by the look of things, is going to be Rick Wynn, who will come through in 6th position. Ali Topley will be 7th, ahead of Shields Bergstrom, who finishes in 8th place. And that will be all of the Class 1s over the start-finish line. So the next cars through will be these 2 that we're looking at now, through the Fogarty S's. Andrew Mitchell leading Class 2 at this stage. Macaulay Underwood, I should say, long-time leader of Class 2, down into 2nd place. Has he got anything else he can throw at Andrew Mitchell in the closing stages? He's running out of time. He's certainly running out of opportunities, because you've only got Goddard's and the sprint to the line to try and decide who might pick up the Class 2 win. Is he close enough at Goddard's? No is the answer. So as long as Andrew Mitchell is clean coming out of the corner, it looks as though the first Class 2 win of the 2026 Focus Cup season is going to go the way of Andrew Mitchell, who will come through to claim the win. Macaulay Underwood will come through in 2nd position. Kevin Taylor Beebe will complete the Class 2 podium as he comes through in a very lonely 3rd, actually. in his class at this stage. 4th place in Class 2 will be Ian Howard, ahead of the next car coming through, which will be Andrew Freeman, who made good progress from his qualifying position, and the top 6 in Class 2 will be the pink car with the light green flashes. That will be Abby Walton, who is back in Class 2 this year, but has tested a Class 1 car at Anglesey and was very much enjoying it and wasn't that far at all off the pace of her father, so it'd be good to see Abby out actually in Class 1 at some point. But I think her focus, her father was telling me yesterday, is to try and grab a win this year in Class 2. Well, she was top 6 in Class 2 in that first race. The win overall goes the way of Ian Mitchell, hand out of the window. He'll be absolutely delighted with that. He also picked up the fastest lap of the race as well, which will give him an extra 5 championship points you get for the fastest lap. Whether it be in Class 1 or the Class 2 fastest lap will also get 5 championship points, but that's a little bit more of a difficult one to try and work out. I think it will probably go the way of Macaulay Underwood, I think, that's got the fastest lap in Class 2, but that can all be confirmed later on. We'll also confirm some results for you shortly for what is our first race of the 2026 Focus Cup Championship. They'll all do it later on again this afternoon, around about 5:30 this afternoon. But let's just confirm the results for the race that we've just seen, the opening round of the 2026 Focus Cup Championship here at Donington Park. Ian Mitchell claims the win from John Baker in 2nd place, and Simon Walton was 3rd. Mark McCann, Simon Langford and Richard Wim complete the top 6. Ali Topley was there in 7th, head of Shields Bergstrom in 8th place, and in 9th place it's the Class 2 winner that comes through, which is Andrew Mitchell, who was chased all of the way and had a good fight with Macaulay Underwood, who finishes 2nd in Class 2 and 10th overall. Then it's Kevin Taylor-Beebe, who finishes the Class 2 podium, 11th overall, 3rd in class for him, ahead of Ian Howard, followed by Andrew Freeman and Abby Walton. 15th place is where we see the car of Jake Critchley. Then it is going to be Matt Croft, followed by Pinky Lazarodo, Sarah Hall, Mike Eng, and then Shui Wang completes the top 20. And then as we head outside of the top 20, it is going to be Adam Winter, who was the last of the finishers and one of the few cars that was lapped in that slightly shortened race for the Focus Cup Championship. So that's it for round 1 of the championship. Hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully we'll get the full proportion of time in for round 2 later on today, and that is timetable to be around about 5:30 this afternoon. So from everybody here at Focus Cup, thanks for joining us at Donington Park. We'll see you later. Goodbye.